Out of the 5 classes, healer, mage, berserk, archer and tank, which one should you actually choose? And is it good to choose like the best one for damage, for example archer, like all the way from the beginning? If you're having trouble deciding which class to choose, make sure to watch this video all the way through, because it might not be as obvious as some people make it seem. There are few different scenarios that will decide if you what class you should choose. How much money you have is one huge one, obviously, because if you don't have enough money, how are you supposed to be that class? And skill is actually quite a huge problem too for some classes. Not only like skill as in what your skill level is in like combat and stuff, which obviously plays a lot of role in the berserk class, for example, but also your skill in real life. For example, left click mage, as I am right now, you actually need to have quite good aim, because you really gotta be able to, as you see there, hit the mobs quite perfectly, or else they won't die. So some classes are easier to play than others. For example, tank is probably the easiest class, and either left click mage or archer is the hardest, maybe about equally as hard. And then expensive. How expensive this is the class? Don't you have a lot of money? Then maybe you should look into becoming a healer or tank or berserk, for example. Berserk is kinda expensive, but not as expensive as some of the other classes. If you have a lot of money, maybe you wanna become a archer or a mage. Okay, so for how expensive it is, I'll think about like how expensive it is to be good enough to complete floor 7, the hardest floor, and I will go from there. Healer is probably the cheapest class for you to be able to complete floor 7, because you need a setup basically just consisting of like about 200 million. Berserk is almost as cheap at about 200 million, a little bit more to complete it consistently. Whilst for example archers need at least 400 or 500 mil, and the same goes for mages. So you shouldn't start out with archers, for example, because it's the most expensive class, and you won't be able to really afford anything. Mage, the same. I would recommend, if you're new, to go for berserk, because you can also use that outside of dungeons. Mage is quite a good option. Left click mage is pretty much like berserk, but you have the mage abilities and you can deal a bit more damage. So I'm left click mage right now, as you can see, and it is very fun to play, but it's very hard because you gotta be able to have really good aim, which is kind of a problem a lot of times, because can't really hit the mobs. If you want to do as much damage as possible, you should be archer, mage, or left click mage. Berserk is kind of good for doing a lot of damage, but berserk is kind of hybrid between tank and left click mage. You do a little bit less damage, but you get a lot of lifesteal, which is really good. So yeah. So then, let's do a quick summary and try to decide which class you wanna be. Don't be archer if you don't have a budget of like at least 300 million plus, because you need the bones. Then instead go for another class until you can afford to be archer. But if you have a budget over 300 million, you could either go archer or become a really good mage. So being a mage, actually I have never been, or I was a mage in the way start of dungeons, but that barely even counts because there wasn't a lot of weapons. The bonzo staff was what I had. Or you get some life still, but not enough to survive, so you gotta be a little bit more tanky to survive as a left click mage. For example, without a full team I can't really do terracotta. I need at least 2 or 3 members more than me. So if you have a real low budget, you should go for either tank or berserk or healer. Berserk is a little higher in price, about 200 mil to complete floor 7, and that's like not really consistently, like 250 to 300 mil I would say to complete it consistently. And if you have really bad CPS, like below 6, I think Skyblock is capped at, then you should probably be healer, because it's you kinda need the CPS for the other classes, except like mage maybe, and archer. So at least don't be berserk or tank if you have below 6 CPS. Okay, so if this video helped you just a little bit, I would love for you to subscribe. It's free and takes literally 2 seconds.